Let us continue by exploring several perspectives of the different kinds of causes and conditions that exist. The first perspective is on the perspective of having or not having. Causes and conditions are not a matter of knowledge, and it cannot be understood by debate or researches. So it must be experienced by our heart and mind within our everyday life. Therefore, understanding causes and conditions through real practice and experience means true understanding of causes and conditions. Under the law of causes and conditions, our nature are all equal. So the universe is us, while we are the universe. Therefore, if we comprehend the law of causes and conditions superficially through intellectual speculation or simply as just word expressions, then this does not mean having the true understanding of causes and conditions. So the result would be as useless as if trying to find fish on trees. The second perspective is the perspective of wholesome or unwholesome causes and conditions. Causes and conditions can be good or evil. So wholesome causes and conditions means causes and conditions that are good, while unwholesome causes and conditions means causes and conditions that are evil. So let us suppose for someone who lives for 100 years old, but he spends his whole life never understanding the true idea of causes and conditions. So he never actually came to understand the ultimate truth of existence, and he only has incorrect comprehension of causes and conditions. So if he lives his life through this way, then he will merely be living as a slave to his environment, and as a result, he will only continue to make the incorrect or the evil causes and conditions because of this. On the other hand, if a person who has a firm belief in causes and conditions, he will understand this idea correctly and use it well to make his futures with bright and virtuous conditions. The third perspective is the perspective on internal or external causes and conditions. So causes and conditions can be internal or external. External causes and conditions are commonly noticed as the factors that are created by our environments, while on the other hand, the internal causes and conditions are more related to intrinsic value. Take a farming field as an example. The external factors may be the same, while the harvest will be different from different seeds. The seeds in this instance has different causes and conditions of value. For example, the brothers and sisters of the same parents may have different temperament or characters, or the students who have been taught by the same teacher will have different intellectual outcomes. So the external causes and conditions, such as the parents or the teachers, may be the same, but the internal causes and conditions of value, such as the talents or the aptitudes, will come out to be very different. Therefore, we will say that causes and conditions may be external or internal. And while external conditions may be complete, the internal causes, if they are inadequate, will cause very different results and effects. The fourth perspective of causes and conditions are correct or erroneous causes and conditions. So this means that causes and conditions can be correct or wrong. Say, for example, for some people, when they become ill, they will know that this illness is caused by disorders of the body or the mind even. So they will be willing to undergo treatments. So they will be willing to accept the right medicine and the right treatment so that their illness can be cured. On the other hand, another person who falls ill may believe that this illness is caused as a result of a divine punishment. So they will go around feeling all superstitious. They will go around trying to find different kinds of cures. They say, for example, they will look for charms to wear, or some people will even go as far as eating incense ashes. But we know that these causes and conditions are wrong. They're not the right causes and conditions that will help cure the illness of the body. So by doing so, they will only cause the health conditions of the body to become even worse. So life may be smooth or bumpy, and there may be many obstacles in life. But we know that many of life's difficulties are rooted in the misconceptions about the laws of cause and condition. Therefore, we must know how to apply the correct understanding and take away the erroneous views. After discussing the few perspectives on causes and conditions, let us now focus on the relationship between dependent origination as well as cause and effect. We know that every cause produces its effect. Just as the Samyutta Agama Sutra says, because there is this, there is that. Because this arises, therefore that arises. If this is not, then that will not be. If this is obliterated, then that will be obliterated. Here, the words this I'm talking about are the cause, while that are the effect. And neither of the cause and the effect has an independent nature, so one cannot exist without the other. Just like I've said before, look at this table. This table may be the cause of the creation of the transformation of tree into wood and then into the table. So without the right cause, which is the seed that gives rise to the tree, the table would not be here. So without the right cause, this table would not exist. There are a few basic concepts on cause and effect. For one thing, there is no first effect, and there will be no last, I'll go back again. First, there will be no first cause, and there will be no last effect or result. So this is similar to the question of whether the egg or the chicken existed first. We need to look at this not from a linear perspective. Rather, we have to look at this in a circular perspective, so that the egg and the chicken has a circular relationship. Therefore, there is no beginning or end to the existence of things. And secondly, cause and effect are relative to each other, so that a cause creates an effect. At the same time, this effect creates another cause, and so on. Therefore, it is like a chain that goes on. And thirdly, the third basic concept of cause and effect is that cause and effect persist over time. So nobody escapes karma. Once a cause has been planted, its effect, or what we say the karma, will ripen when the time is right. But before the right time comes, the karma or the effect will be there waiting, even after a very long time before it can exist. But it never ceases to exist until it manifests. Therefore, cause and effect is persistent over time. And fourthly, cause and effect are two sides of the same coin. They are the same thing, just two sides of the same item that I have right here in the middle. So a cause contains an effect, while this effect contains another cause, and so on. So therefore, they're all together. They're closely related to each other. There are also 6 ways to understand cause and effect. The first is that effect arises from causes. So dependent origination depends on the presence of a cause as well as the presence of a condition, especially the right conditions to exist. So if there is a cause yet no condition, then nothing happens. At the same time, without a cause, yet with the right conditions, nothing still won't happen. So while the cause has the primary importance of existence and the effect has a secondary importance, the two still need to rely on each other to exist. For example, just take a look at the seed of Buddhahood that lies within us. By studying the Dharma or observing the precepts or practicing Buddhism hard, we will allow the right conditions, will offer the right conditions for this seed of Buddhahood to grow within us. Secondly, there is the perception of appearance, which depends on causes and conditions. So that appearance is the characteristic of phenomena, the feature of phenomena. Take, for example, impermanence and interconnectedness are a feature of the universe. And each phenomena does not have its own, actually has its own feature. Say, for example, fire is hot, ice is cold, or we all look different. This is time for another short break. So we will continue after this. Welcome back. Let's get back to the point where we're discussing how every phenomenon has its own feature. Just as fire is hot and ice can be cold, and we all look different physically. So we know that we require the right conditions for perception in order for us to see the features. For example, if someone is speaking a language that we do not understand, then to us, it will be merely a series of pronunciations of words, and they do not make any sense to us. So therefore, our appearances can also be affected by our inner features or our inner conditions. So what goes on in our mind can be shown through our physical appearance. If I'm sad or happy, I will either be showing a sad face or a happy face. The third way to understand causes and conditions is by seeing that events depend on principles. So event and principle always come in a pair. They always come together. So this universe has a rational basis. So I wouldn't go and call a car an elephant, or a table wouldn't disappear out into the thin air for no reason. Or so when I clap my hands like this, it's not going to sound like somebody coughing. So each event will have its own principle. The fourth way to understand cause and effect is to know that many arise from the one. For example, a seed may grow a very large number of fruits, or a small beginning can be connected to a very complex result. Also, the human mind can have great potentials. Just a small act of cruelty could cause a large disaster, while a simple act of kindness will result in wonderful effects. The next way, which is the fifth way to understand cause and effect, is that existence stands in emptiness. So this room has to be empty in order for me to be sitting here. Or a cup has to be empty before it can contain water. The sixth way to understand cause and effect is that a Buddha is produced from a human being. So we are all future Buddhas because we all possess the Buddha nature. And the way to become a Buddha is by fully understanding the importance of cause and effect and then purify our mind. Just as the Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch says, a Buddha is an enlightened sentient being. A sentient being is a Buddha who has not yet become enlightened. Therefore, I have just provided the 6 basic ways to understand cause and effect. Let us now go on to the 4 conditions pertinent to dependent origination. We know that in order for cause and effect to operate, there must be the right conditions. So dependent origination here becomes the interplay between the cause and effect as well as its conditions. So while cause is primary, the conditions are also very important. And here I have 4 basic kinds of conditions that are related to our discussion to dependent origination. And let me just quickly discuss these 4. The first kind of condition is what we call a causal condition. So the cause of a phenomenon is intrinsic to that phenomenon. For example, a seed that produces a shoot becomes a causal condition of that shoot, since in some way this shoot is contained within the seed. So sunshine that causes the shoot to grow is different because it is an extrinsic factor to both the seed and the shoot. And human behavior often is caused by both intrinsic as well as extrinsic causes. Say, for example, the intrinsic seed for a human laughter could be sprouted only when the extrinsic cause, say for example a laugh or a tickle, it stimulates this seed. The second kind of condition is called condition without intervals. These are also known as successive conditions. So they refer especially to the conditions of the mind. The mind moves very quickly from one instant to the next. So when the Buddha contemplated the succession of these instants, what he realized was that there are actually no interval between these instants. So he saw that the contents of our thoughts at one instant give rise to the contents of our thoughts at the next instant. And he saw that this happens without the help of any outside agency or without intervals, and even with the absence of any other medium except just our mind. So therefore, careful scrutiny of mental conditions without interval leads to great insight into how the karma actually works within the human mind. The third is called conditional conditioning. This means that all extrinsic conditions that have all bearing on the mind. So intrinsic to the mind is the I consciousness. But if it's without the intrinsic conditions, or say the form or lights, then this consciousness of the I still will not function properly. The same is true for all the rest of the other senses here. So the Buddha said that thought itself cannot occur without extrinsic conditional conditions of the past, the present, as well as the future. Now the fourth is other conditions. So other conditions here means all the other conditions besides the 3 which we have just mentioned. So that all of these conditions will either help with the process of cause and effect, or other way they do not stop it from happening. So they do not cause any obstructions, and they do not hinder the process of cause and conditions. Say, for example, the fact that a deer did not eat the blueberry is a condition that did not stop the cause and effect of the blueberry from existing. So the fact that the deer did not eat the blueberry is one of the other conditions that have helped, in quotations, produce the blueberry. So the above 4 conditions can be thought of as being either direct or indirect conditions. So all causal conditions are considered to be conditions that operate directly on phenomenon, while the other 3 kinds are considered to operate indirectly. A further insight into these four kinds of conditions is this. It goes as followed. Causal conditions and other conditions are sufficient by themselves to produce material phenomena. And in contrast, the mind requires all four conditions for its operation. Therefore, these are the four kinds of conditions that we have discussed, which are deeply related to dependent origination. So overall, what have we discussed today? I would like to make a few simple points to help us understand better of what dependent origination really does for us and the way it really helps us with our lives. So the first one is that dependent origination shows us how the process of change takes place. Therefore, by observing the process of this change, we are able to understand and accept the way things work better. And secondly, dependent origination shows us the source of suffering, because here it shows us, by understanding dependent origination, it shows us a cause, a condition, as well as the effect to why suffering exists. So we will be able to tackle the problems of suffering by observing the conditions. And thirdly, dependent origination teaches us that we are not helpless people who are doomed to live a life full of incompetence, failure, or misery, because our future actually lies in our own hands. So the future conditions depend on the causal conditions that we plan today. Therefore, by understanding this, if we want to build a better future, then we can start by planting the better seeds or the better causes and create the better conditions. Also, dependent origination teaches us how to understand what is most valuable in life and how to turn what is negative into positive views. For example, changing our perspective on how we look at this world. And dependent origination also teaches us to understand that all phenomena are conditioned by other phenomena so that they stand in emptiness. So basically, dependent origination will take us beyond greed, anger, ignorance, attachment, suffering, and delusions of duality. Therefore, dependent origination is the most basic truth and as well as philosophy about life. Therefore, we'll stop here today on our discussion on dependent origination. Join us next time.